It was a regular Saturday afternoon. The mall buzzed with the usual weekend energy, families strolling from store to store, kids laughing near the food court, and music playing softly from the overhead speakers. No one expected the silence that would come minutes later. Among the crowd was a 27-year-old man named Rayan. He wasn't with anyone, didn't draw attention, and moved quietly through the aisles of a home electronics store. Just minutes before, he had bought a small item, nothing unusual, paid in cash, no conversation with the cashier except a polite nod. He looked like anyone else. Then, without warning, it happened. Rayan stumbled. At first, people nearby thought he had tripped, but the way he fell, limp, sudden, silent, wasn't normal. A woman let out a gasp. Someone dropped their phone. Within seconds, a crowd had gathered, voices overlapping in panic. Two security guards rushed in while a man from the bakery kiosk ran over, claiming he had CPR training. But Rayan wasn't responding. His eyes were open, but unblinking. His breathing had stopped. The mall, a place of constant motion and noise, froze around his lifeless body. The paramedics arrived in under 10 minutes. They tried everything: compressions, oxygen, adrenaline. Nothing worked. It was too late. By the time they loaded him onto the stretcher, people were whispering. Some cried, others filmed, but most just stared, disturbed by how sudden it had all been. Who was he? Why did he collapse without a sound, without a struggle? And what the doctors would discover just hours later would shake everyone: his family, the hospital staff, and even the police to their core. At the hospital, the atmosphere was tense. The emergency room staff had seen sudden deaths before: heart attacks, aneurysms, overdoses. But something about Rayan's case felt wrong. He had no visible injuries, no signs of trauma, no medical ID, and no phone on him. Just a receipt in his pocket, time-stamped only 15 minutes before he collapsed. When the doctor on duty, Dr. Harris, examined the body, his initial suspicion was cardiac arrest. But the ECG showed something strange. His heart had stopped in a state that didn't match any typical rhythm disturbance. It was as if the heart had simply given up, not from disease but from an invisible external force. They ordered a full toxicology panel, a standard autopsy, and a deeper tissue scan to check for clots or ruptures. But every result came back clean. No drugs, no poisons, no hidden health conditions, not even dehydration. His organs looked completely normal. The only anomaly came from the forensic technician who noticed something odd on Rayan's chest. Small, faint circular impressions just below the collarbone, barely visible to the eye. Almost like shallow burns, but with no inflammation, no bleeding, no broken skin, just marks. Dr. Harris called in a second opinion, then a third. Each one said the same thing: "I've never seen anything like this." Rayan's body was taken for deeper examination: CT scans, bone density imaging, and neurological testing. And then something even stranger was found. His brain showed unusual activity for a man who had been clinically dead for hours. Despite a flatline ECG and total respiratory failure, the scan picked up faint electrical traces, patterns that didn't match natural brain waves but seemed organized, almost as if they were encoded. The radiologist, confused, ran the scan again. Same result. Ryan's brain was emitting a signal, not random firings, a structured pulse, repeating, rhythmic. The team stared at the screen in stunned silence. "What the hell is that?" one whispered. Dr. Harris leaned closer. "It's like a message." None of them said it out loud, but they were all thinking it. This wasn't a medical event. It was something else. And the deeper they dug, the more terrifying the truth became. As the scans and test results were reviewed again and again, the hospital staff became increasingly unsettled. The electrical activity in Rayan's brain didn't fade. It remained stable, pulsing in perfect intervals, as if following some sort of pattern or code. The neurologist on call, Dr. Selena Moreau, was brought in to analyze the readings. She stared at the data for nearly 15 minutes before saying a word. "This isn't natural," she finally whispered. "It's not random. It's repeating, like binary, almost like a sequence." A data analyst from the hospital's research wing was called in to verify it. He ran the waveform through an encoding software normally used for EEG analysis. After a few minutes of translation, the sequence formed a chilling line of text. "Do not let them touch me." Dr. Harris blinked. "Excuse me?" The analyst ran the code again. Same result. "Do not let them touch me." The room went quiet. No one spoke, but the weight of those words clung to the air like smoke. Doctors don't believe in ghosts, curses, or messages from the dead. But this wasn't hearsay. This wasn't rumor. It was data, measurable, repeating. The police were immediately informed. They arrived quietly, trying not to draw attention. Ryan's body was placed under restricted access. Security footage from the mall was requested. And while reviewing it, the real horror began to unfold. At first, it looked ordinary. Ryan walking calmly, pausing near an escalator, holding a shopping bag. But then, something happened. 2 minutes before his collapse, he stopped in his tracks. Just stopped. His head turned slightly as if hearing something no one else could. There was no one near him. But he stared into the air with wide eyes, frozen, like he was listening to something only he could hear. Then, without panic or pain, he began to sweat. His hand trembled. He reached into his pocket and pulled something out, something the footage couldn't clearly capture, and looked at it as if trying to remember something important. And then, he mouthed a word. Frame by frame, the footage showed his lips moving. They brought in a lip reader to interpret. After several reviews, she looked up, visibly shaken. He said, "They found me." The room fell silent again. Within minutes of those words, Rayan collapsed. The police launched a deeper investigation into his identity. What they discovered raised even more questions. Rayan had no immediate family listed. His records were clean, but unusually blank. No health insurance, no employment history in the last 5 years, and an address registered to a location that no longer existed. A demolished warehouse on the edge of the city. But the strangest thing was the passport found in a locker near the autopsy room the next morning. A staff member discovered it tucked in a pocket of a coat no one had seen before. It was Rayan's photo, but the name was different. The country listed did not exist. The seal was in a language that no one could identify, not even through translation software. It was as if the man who died didn't exist in our world, and the message his brain left behind was just the beginning. The hospital went on lockdown. Quietly, without alarming patients or media, certain floors were sealed off. The coroner's lab was now under surveillance, and Rayan's body had been moved to a secure, climate-controlled room that only 3 people had access to. But even that didn't stop what was coming. That night, Dr. Moreau couldn't sleep. The pattern of Rayan's brain signals haunted her. She kept seeing the waveform, the repeating pulses, the binary sequence, spelling out a warning no one could explain. She returned to the hospital around 3 a.m., needing to look at the scan one more time. But when she entered the lab, the screen was already on. The monitor was glowing faintly, displaying something new. A second message. "They are not human." She staggered back from the screen. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone to call Dr. Harris, but before she could dial, the overhead lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out. The screen remained lit. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, but there was no staff scheduled at that hour. No guards, no janitors, just her. She pressed herself against the wall, listening, her breath shallow. The footsteps stopped outside the door, and then silence. Dr. Moreau's hand reached for the power switch, trying to shut down the screen, but it froze. The message had changed again. Line by line, it began to scroll. "They live inside memory. They erase what they touch. They used me to get in." Her heart pounded as she backed away. Suddenly, the door creaked open, but no one was there. No footsteps walking away, just a cold wind sweeping into the room, despite every window being sealed. She ran, down the corridor, past the ICU, through the stairwell. She didn't stop until she reached the front entrance, where a security guard finally stopped her, alarmed by her state. When Dr. Harris arrived later that morning, she tried to explain what she saw, but the system showed no trace of the messages. The monitors had reset. No log, no backup. Just the original scan of Rayan's brain, still faintly active. No one believed her, except Jason. Jason was the forensic technician who had first identified the code in Rayan's neural signals. He was quiet, introverted, rarely involved in deeper investigations. But he pulled Dr. Moreau aside. "There's something I didn't report," he said in a whisper. "Last night before I left, I printed a trace from the neural pattern. It didn't make sense at the time, but I saw it. The waveform, it matches a signal from something else." Dr. Moreau looked at him, confused. "From what?" Jason hesitated. "From deep space probes, old data, transmission logs that never got decoded. It's the same structure." She stared at him, disbelief tightening her chest. "You think this isn't just a message? It's a transmission?" He nodded. "We've been studying them for years. Silent, scattered bursts from places we can't trace. But now, one of them found a way through." Dr. Moreau felt the weight of that truth settle in. The man who died in the mall hadn't just collapsed. He had carried something with him, something not from here. The next 48 hours turned into chaos behind the scenes. The hospital's top administrators were instructed to restrict all external communications regarding Rayan's case. Medical files were sealed. Surveillance footage from the night Dr. Moreau saw the second message vanished from the internal system, with no explanation. Jason, meanwhile, had started receiving anonymous emails. No subject line, no signature. Each contained screenshots of satellite imagery, timestamps, and audio logs filled with static and faint whisper-like pulses. Some matched the rhythm of Rayan's brain signal. Someone out there knew what was going on, and they were watching. Dr. Moreau and Jason met secretly in the basement archive room, where old physical medical records were stored. Hidden among the dusty files, Jason spread out printed data from Rayan's scans, alongside classified waveform patterns he had quietly pulled from a now decommissioned observatory database. "They match almost perfectly," he whispered. "Rayan's signal. It's not just a warning. It's a pattern. One meant to activate something." Dr. Moreau's breath hitched. "Activate what?" Jason hesitated. "Memory." They dug deeper into Rayan's background, pulling pieces from what little they could find. Old Social Security records, a few blurry photographs, and then a breakthrough. A woman listed on an outdated emergency contact card. No phone number, just a name, Eva Ilyenko. They searched through archived hospital entries across the country. Eva had once been a neuroscience researcher, specializing in experimental memory mapping. Her last known work was with a private contractor, and then suddenly she disappeared. Jason tracked an address to a remote cabin 2 hours outside the city. They had to go. They left that evening under the pretense of a research leave, not knowing if they'd even find her alive. The roads narrowed. The signals faded. By the time they reached the location, the sun had dipped behind the trees and fog was beginning to crawl in through the valleys. The cabin looked abandoned, windows dark, mailbox overflowing, vines creeping up the sides. But the moment Dr. Moreau knocked, the door creaked open, just slightly, and a voice called out from the darkness. "You brought it with you, didn't you?" Jason froze. "Who are you?" he asked cautiously. The voice stepped closer. "You don't understand," the woman said quietly. "He wasn't supposed to survive the transfer." Dr. Moreau stepped forward. "Transfer?" Eva nodded, eyes tired, voice strained. "He wasn't the message. He was the vessel." Eva led them inside. The cabin's walls were lined with old hard drives, dusty filing cabinets, and shelves stacked with VHS tapes, handwritten journals, and decades-old monitors that still blinked with faint static. In the dim light, she looked worn down, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. She gestured for them to sit. "You need to understand something," she began. "Rayan wasn't sick. He wasn't attacked. He was chosen. Years ago, we discovered a signal, one that wasn't just sound, but memory, fragments of thought, emotion, fear, something sent across space, encoded in a way only the human brain could interpret if implanted." Jason leaned forward. "You implanted it?" Ava nodded slowly. "He volunteered. We didn't know what would happen. We thought we could monitor it, control it, but the signal grew. It consumed him from within, reshaped his neural pathways. We lost contact with him. He vanished. Until now. Dr. Moreau's voice trembled. What is this signal trying to do? Ava's expression darkened. It's not trying to say anything. It's trying to survive. It's not a message. It's a consciousness. Ancient, cold, aware. It uses memory like roots, burrowing deeper until it finds a host strong enough to hold it permanently. Jason whispered, "It was looking for a way in." Eva nodded. "And through Rayan, it got one." Silence fell across the room. "But then why did he die?" Dr. Moreau asked. Eva hesitated, then replied, "Because Rayan fought back. His body failed, but his mind resisted. Long enough to send out warnings. Long enough to leave behind traces. You weren't supposed to find them, but you did." Jason reached into his bag and pulled out the printed signal charts. "If what you're saying is true, this thing isn't finished." Eva's eyes filled with dread. "Number, it's not. Rayan may have died, but something inside him didn't." A low hum suddenly vibrated through the cabin walls. One of the old monitors flickered to life without being touched. Lines of code began to scroll. Jason stood up, his skin prickling. "That's not possible. That hard drive's not even connected." Eva stared, horrified. "It's found us." The screen lit up with a single, pulsing message. "I remember." Jason grabbed Dr. Moreau's arm. "We have to go." But before they could move, every light in the cabin died. Pitch black. A single breath, not human, echoed from the corner of the room. Dr. Moreau clutched Jason's hand. "What do we do?" And Eva's voice, now distant and hollow, replied through the darkness. "You run, and you don't ever stop remembering, because whatever they had awakened was no longer looking for a vessel. It was already inside."
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.